Hey guys, welcome back. And you guys can see I'm in Disney right now. We took a trip earlier today, so I'm recording this from Florida, but I still wanted to get a few videos out for you guys. So I'm going to be doing my 2023 draft grades for rounds 1 through 7. Now, we did grades after night 1 and night 2, but this is going to be a accumulation of every single round and how I think each team did. We'll be going through all 32 NFL teams. But before I do, make sure you guys hit that like button, subscribe if you are new. Come on, I'm recording this from Disney World, putting a lot of work in, taking time out of my vacation. If you guys could hit that like button, that'd mean the world to me. But let's go ahead and start this off. It's going to start alphabetically, and we're going to start with the Arizona Cardinals, who I really like what they did in their draft. Picking Paris Johnson, they made some good trades. Get Paris Johnson, one of the best tackles in this class, a guy Kyler Murray was asking for. They did that. Got B.J. Ojolari, a really good edge rusher, a guy who can rush the passer. Got Garrett Williams, one of my favorite corners, and Michael Wilson, one of my favorite receivers. Two of my favorite players. You got John Gaines, more offensive line help, which you can never have too many of. And then Clayton Tune, he might start at the beginning of the year for them because they really didn't have a backup quarterback. He was really good at Houston. They get a backup quarterback. Owen Papo, I really liked at Auburn. He tested great at the combine. I think he could be a good linebacker. And then Keitrell Clark, a slot cornerback. And then Dante Stills, some more interior defensive line help. And they really addressed a lot of their needs and the trades they made. They now have a first rounder from the Texans next year, which could be one of the top picks, and a third rounder from the Eagles. I think the Cardinals crushed this draft in Gannon's first draft. I'm going to give the Cardinals a solid A for what they did. They really impressed me with the moves they made, and I think they did a really good job. This will not be including UDFAs, by the way. I don't believe ESPN is going to have that in here. So moving on to the Atlanta Falcons, they didn't have as many picks, but they took Bijan Robinson, the best player probably, or one of the top 3 players in this class. They took him at number 8. Maybe a little high for a running back, but I mean, he's a generational running back, is what we're all hearing. Matthew Bergeron can play guard. I thought there was a couple of other ways they could have gone. I don't hate that one. Zach Harrison, nice edge rusher. Really don't know how he's going to fit in that 3-4 that Atlanta does run, but he'll probably be a 3-4 defensive end, which isn't bad. Clark Phillips is my favorite pick that they made, though. They needed a slot corner. You pick him up in round 4. I think that's really good value. Then you get DeMarco Helms and Jovan Gwynn. More secondary help and some offensive line help. Again, I'm not in love with this Falcons draft. I think Clark Phillips and Bijan are your 2 best picks. I'm going to give this Falcons draft a C. I think that's about the range. I think the Bijan pick is good. Clark Phillips pick is very good, but overall was not super impressed with what they did. The Baltimore Ravens took Zay Flowers and Trenton Simpson on the first 2 nights. Great value there. You stole Trenton Simpson in round 3. Zay Flowers, I think, complements Rashad Bateman and Odell Beckham really perfectly. A speedy receiver who's been flying up boards. They get another linebacker in Tavius Robinson, who I'm not too familiar with, but more defensive depth, which we know this is how the Baltimore teams of the past have won. Caillou Blue Kelly, a very good pick in the 5th round. And then you got some offensive line help in Andrew Voorhees. Andrew Voorhees is one of my favorite players in this draft. I think Baltimore did really well considering they didn't have very many picks. They traded back up for Andrew Voorhees, who won't play year 1, but you get him in round 7, who was arguably he was going to be a 2nd round pick, I think, had it not been the injury. I think that's really good value. Trenton Simpson, Zay Flowers, Andrew Voorhees. I don't think it's as good as the Cardinals draft. I think they could have done a little bit better, but I think the Ravens get a solid B for me. I really like what Baltimore did in Eric DeCosta, and they got Lamar back, so you got to like that. As for Buffalo, they made some interesting moves. Dalton Kincaid was their first pick, which I was not in love with. The more I think about it, the more I do enjoy the pick. Osiris Torrance was fantastic value. Dorian Williams can be that Tremaine Edmonds replacement. He's a little undersized, but man, he can play. Osiris Torrance, though, I thought they could have taken him at 26 or 27. They moved up a spot to get Kincaid. I think Kincaid fits. I think him and Dawson Knox are going to work really nicely together. Nick Broker, very good value. You get Alex Austin in round 7. I think that's great depth at the secondary. You needed another corner. And then Justin Shorter, who's a very physical, fast receiver. I really love what Buffalo did, and this is an A draft for me. I think Buffalo did very solid. The Kincaid pick was your first pick, and I wasn't in love with it, but the more I look at it, I'm like, yeah, this is a good draft for them. Carolina, You got Bryce Young with the number 1 overall pick. Love that. Jonathan Mingo with your 2nd round pick. I love that too. And then the DJ Johnson pick, I didn't like as much. Really struggling to figure out where he fits on this Panthers defense, but I think it's a solid move. Chandler Zavala in round 4, steal, and I really like Jamie Robinson to this team as well. 4 out of the 5 picks I really liked. Similar to the Ravens, I think I'm going to give the Carolina Panthers a B. You took the unanimous number 1 player. I think Mingo fits this receiver core well. I think the Panthers are going to get a B, and it's a high B for me. It's going to be right up there. I think they had a better draft than the Ravens, but I'm not going to say they had as good a draft as the Cardinals or the Bills. We'll move on to the Chicago Bears, who I liked what they did as well. Darnell Wright was great value for me, or was a great pick. You needed a right tackle, Darnell Wright, the true right tackle of this class. Gervon Dexter and Zach Pickens, they're doing what the Colts did. I said this in my day 2 grades. Building from the inside out. The Colts got Grover Stewart and DeForest Buckner, and then they went out and addressed the edge. I think that's what Chicago's trying to do here with Eberflus. You got Tyreek Stevenson, the corner, who I absolutely love for them. A physical corner. You can move Kyler Gordon to the slot. Really like that. Roshan Johnson and Tyler Scott in round 4. Huge picks. Tyler Scott's perfect for this team. You need a burner, a guy you can put in the slot who can take the top off defenses and speed, and I think Tyler Scott does that. And Roshan Johnson, they lost David Montgomery. I don't know what Khalil Herbert's going to be like, so you get Roshan Johnson. Noah Sewell could have been a first-round pick, and that didn't end up happening. He could have been a first-round pick before the season. It didn't end up working out. And then Terrell Smith, Kendall Williamson, more secondary help. And then Travis Bell, more interior help. Would have liked if they went edge. Would have liked had they maybe gone with some more offensive line help. Only 1 offensive lineman taken. Overall, though, I think it's a solid B for me from the Chicago Bears. I think they did a good job. Took the players that they needed. Addressed positions of need. And I give them a solid A. And then we move on to the Cincinnati Bengals. Again, another team that I liked what they did. Myles Murphy, I wasn't in love with the pick, but I understand why they did it. DJ Turner, a slot corner, perfect fit for them. Charlie Jones, another perfect fit. They really addressed the offense really well, though. Charlie Jones, Chase Brown, Andre Yashovas, incredible picks for them. Tyler Boyd's a free agent after this year, so Charlie Jones, I really like Charlie Jones. He made Garrett Williams look, one of my favorite corners, he made Garrett Williams look like he was not going to be that great. Charlie Jones is good. Chase Brown can be your long-term Joe Mixon replacement if you need him to. Brad Robbins, a punter in the 6th round, which I think decent spots to take a punter. And then DJ Ivey from Miami, another secondary. I think this is an A for the Cincinnati Bengals. They addressed their needs. They got what they needed. As much as I thought they could have gone other directions, surprised they didn't take a tight end. But I think with what the Bengals came into the draft needing, they get a solid B from me. And then we're going to move on to the Cleveland Browns. I absolutely love what Cleveland did. This was one of my favorite drafts of the entire. This might get the first S tier. Cedric Tillman, they drafted first. I think you needed another receiver to add to this core. Maybe not with your first pick. Siaki Ika, I'm not a huge fan of the player, but I understand it. You need a run stuffer in the middle. That's exactly what Ika is going to bring alongside Dalvin Tomlinson, who's more of a pass rusher. DeJuan Jones, 6'8", big Thanos there. You get a tackle, your long-term tackle. Isaiah McGuire, a steal in the 4th round. You have an edge rusher who I think can start day 1 next to Myles Garrett. I think they work really nicely together. Dorian Thompson-Robinson, a developmental quarterback. Who knows what's going to happen with Deshaun Watson long-term. I like that. Cameron Mitchell's a good cornerback as well. You get him in the 5th round. And maybe one of the steals of the entire draft, Luke Whippler in the 6th round, a center. Absolutely love it for them. This is going to be the first S tier for me. The Cleveland Browns, yeah, they crushed it in this draft. Not very many picks, but they did what they needed to do, and I really like that. Moving on to the Dallas Cowboys. This is an interesting one. They made some moves I liked. I liked the Mozzie Smith pick quite a bit, actually. Luke Schoonmaker was not a fan of. DeMarvion Overshown was not a huge fan of. I like the Deuce Vaughn pick, but like Valami Fihoko, okay, I understand why. Asim Richards is a solid one. Eric Scott, Jalen Brooks, okay. I think they got what they needed. I think Schoonmaker was a bit of a reach. Overshown's a great fit. Mozzie Smith, great fit. I like the Deuce Vaughn pick, especially with Tony Pollard being injured, but he's so undersized. This is an interesting one. I think I'm going to give the Cowboys a C tier. I think they could have done a little bit more. I think maybe I would have liked if they addressed the cornerback position a little bit more. Waiting to the 6th round to take Eric Scott is not ideal for me at that position, but they did all right. I'm not hating on the Cowboys. I really love the Mozzie Smith pick, though. For Denver, another team I liked what they did. Didn't have very many picks, but you go Marvin Mims with your first pick. You needed another receiver. I think he could have a lot of upside there. Drew Sanders was a steal in the 3rd round. Was my second linebacker. They got him. Riley Moss, some more secondary help, as well as J.L. Skinner. J.L. Skinner is one of my favorite safeties. You get him in the 6th round, and then Alex Forsyth, who can be your Lloyd Cushenberry replacement. You pick him up in the 7th round. Very good value for the Denver Broncos, and this is an A for me. I think Denver did a great job. Moving on to the Detroit Lions, and I know this is going to be controversial here, because I think I am ultimately going to give the Lions a B. The first 2 picks, they picked 2 players that are really good, but they picked them really high, and I don't think a lot of people was expecting to see it. But Jahmyr Gibbs, Jack Campbell, great picks. And you moved off DeAndre Swift. So the Jahmyr Gibbs pick makes a little bit more sense. Sam Laporta, they needed a tight end. I'm sorry, Lions fans. I know you didn't want to take tight end. You needed a tight end. You saw what happened when you took TJ Hawkinson. I think Laporta is a very good vertical threat tight end. Brian Branch is a steal. Hendon Hooker is a steal. Okay, Broderick Martin's a bit of a reach. Colby Sorsdale's a bit of a reach. Antoine Green, you never know. They could use another weapon here. I thought they should have addressed wide receiver a little earlier. This is a B for me, though, because you got 5 really good players who could play for you for a long time, especially because C.J. Gardner-Johnson's only on a 1-year deal. The only reason I'm not giving it an A, some of the picks I thought they reached on, and I thought they could have done a little bit better in adding a receiver, so I give them a B there. For the Green Bay Packers, I know I'm going to get a lot of hate for this. This was not one of my favorite drafts, really at all. So let's look at this. Lucas Van Ness, A pick. I really like Van Ness. He's a perfect replacement for what they need. Luke Musgrave, one of my favorite tight ends. I understand. Then we start to see a little bit of a dip. Jaden Reed's a good receiver. I thought they reached on him a little bit there. Tucker Kraft, they definitely reached on, especially because you already took Luke Musgrave. I did not think you needed to go 2 tight ends your first 4 picks. Colby Wooden, I like that. Sean Clifford is maybe the worst pick in the entire draft. I absolutely hated that. Dontavian Wicks is a good pick. Carl Brooks, great pick, actually. I love the Carl Brooks pick. Anders Carlson, okay, solid pick. Carrington Valentine, Anthony Johnson, Grant DeBose, okay. I'm going to give the Packers a B here because there's some picks I just didn't understand, but it wasn't like a bad draft. I think the Anthony Johnson pick is very good. Carrington Valentine, Grant DeBose. Took 3 receivers. You took 2 tight ends. You're really trying your best to give Jordan Love weapons. I respect that, and the more I look at it, the Packers draft definitely got better towards the end, and Green Bay is going to get a B from me. Moving on to the Houston Texans. And they shocked the world when they took C.J. Stroud and Will Anderson back to back. Incredible value. That's an S on its own. And then there's a dip, a major dip. Because Juice Scruggs I thought was a reach there. I didn't think that pick made a lot of sense. And it made a lot less sense when you took Jarrett Patterson in the 6th round. I'm assuming Scruggs is going to move over to guard, which makes me question the Shaq Mason and Kenyon Green stuff. What's going to happen there? Nathaniel Dell, I thought was a reach. I think they needed a physical boundary receiver, and Tank Dell is a speedy slot receiver. Doesn't really fit that. Dylan Horton, fine, you get another edge rusher. I like that. I think they should have addressed defensive interior here. Henry To'o, okay, I mean, I guess you're pairing him with Christian Harris, his former college teammate. Xavier Hutchinson was a great pick, though. I really like Xavier Hutchinson. Brandon Hill's all right. I'm going to give the Texans, just because of C.J. Stroud and the Will Anderson picks, a B. I wasn't in love with the rest of their draft, though. I'm going to be completely honest with you. Moving on to my Indianapolis Colts. Am I biased? Maybe, but this is an S draft for me. Anthony Richardson, great quarterback, high upside, perfect system for him to develop into. Julius Brents, a physical boundary corner which you desperately needed. And Josh Downs, a speedy receiver who can take the top off of defenses. Perfect complement to Pittman and Pierce, which is what they needed. Then today, I was so excited because they took Blake Freeland, a tackle who I think could play left or right tackle, depending on what happens with Braden Smith. But my favorite pick of our draft, Adetomiwa Adebawore in the 4th round. Incredible value. One of my favorite prospects in this class. I did a prospect profile on him. We got him in round 4, and then we took Darius Rush after that. South Carolina doesn't produce bad DBs, and we picked him up in the 5th. Daniel Scott, more safety depth, love that. Will Mallory, I understand it, a good blocking tight end. I wonder if Mo Alley Cox could be on the way out. Titus Leo, I guess they could use an inside linebacker because Bobby Okereke left. Jalen Jones, incredible athlete. Evan Holt, a number 2 running back to Jonathan Taylor. And then a developmental tackle prospect in Jake Witt. I think the Colts crushed it. Chris Ballard did a fantastic job with this team. Colts had one of the best drafts of the day. I think this is an S draft up there with the Browns. Moving on to the Jacksonville Jaguars. They took Anton Harrison with their first pick, which I really liked. I like Anton Harrison. I think he's a good player. And then the draft really fell apart for me after that. Britton Strange, wow. Way too high on Britton Strange. Tank Bigsby, didn't understand. I guess you needed a number 2 back, but it's a deep running back class. I didn't think you needed to go there. Ventrell Miller, they took a couple linebackers last year, so I didn't understand that. Tyler Lacey, I like, can be your Arden Key replacement. Yasir Abdullah, all right, I guess maybe he's your long-term Josh Allen replacement. Antonio Johnson's a fantastic pick here. Parker Washington as well. Derek Parrish, shout out to Derek Parrish. Did an interview with this guy, awesome player. Think he could be a nice piece for them. Very interesting. I don't know where he's going to play for them, but he's a really good football player. You took some defensive line, offensive line, secondary help. I think this is my least favorite draft of the day, though. Anton Harrison, Parker Washington, Antonio Johnson, my favorite picks. I'm going to give them a D here. Wasn't in love with what Jacksonville did. Probably like a high D, maybe a low C. And then we got the Kansas City Chiefs, who took Felix Anudike Uzama. Really like that one. Wanya Morris and Rashee Rice. 3 really good picks. Kamari Connor, another good pick. I think they really did a good job. B.J. Thompson, outside linebacker, more depth. DeAndre Coburn, really solid depth as well in the interior defensive line. Could play next to Chris Jones. And then you get Nick Jones, more secondary help, which I think you can never have too much of. This is a solid B for the Chiefs. I think they addressed some needs that they should have addressed, and they did a good job. The Chargers. All right, Quentin Johnston. I'm going to be honest. I think the Chargers draft was a little confusing. 3 TCU players, Quentin Johnston, Darius Davis, and Max Duggan. Duggan, I guess, is good value. I guess he could be a solid backup quarterback. Darius Davis, Quentin Johnston. Didn't think you needed 2 receivers because you got 4, now 5. Interesting there. Love Dion Henley. Love Tuli Tuipulotu. Jordan McFadden, some offensive line help, and Scott Matlock. The Darius Davis pick is the only questionable one to me. I don't think I would make that pick, but I like this Chargers draft quite a bit otherwise. I'm going to give the Chargers an A, I think. An A-, I think, is where the Chargers belong. And the LA Rams made a ton of picks. And, well, let's look. Steve Avila, one of my favorite picks. Byron Young, Kobe Turner, awesome picks there. Didn't love Stetson Bennett, but I guess he could be a backup quarterback, a mentor for the younger players like Matthew Stafford, Aaron Donald on the team. I mean, he's got a lot of veteran experience. Nick Hampton, outside linebacker. I like Nick Hampton. Warren McClendon, good pick there. Davis Allen, Puka Nacua, Tre'Davious Hodges-Tomlinson, O'Shane Mathis, Zach Evans, Jason Taylor. Yeah, this is a good draft for the Rams. This is an A. They addressed everything they needed. Gets a backup quarterback, even though I think he's a little high. They liked him a lot. Byron Young, I think, could be a day 1 starter. Avila, Warren McClendon on your offensive line. This is a really good draft, and both LA teams get an A from me today. Moving on to the Las Vegas Raiders, and this was my hot take. I was not in love with the Tyree Wilson pick. I'm still not. I think that's a C for me. Because I think they had other needs. Michael Mayer, Byron Young, the defensive tackle from Alabama. Those are good picks. Trey Tucker, a little confused by it. Thought they reached on him. I like the Jacorian Bennett pick. My big issue with the Raiders draft, they needed secondary and they go with Jacorian Bennett. You had other corners on the board for you and you passed on them. Aiden O'Connell, good value there in the 4th round. Christopher Smith as well, awesome value there. I like Nesta Jade Silvera. This is a tough one. I'm going to give this one a B because I think you got good players that can play for you right away. I just wish they would have gone with more secondary. The Dolphins, they didn't have very many picks. You go with Cam Smith, one of my favorite corners, and Devon Achane, speed. There's so much speed on this Miami offense. Elijah Higgins provides even more speed. And then they go Ryan Hayes. I'm giving this a C. As much as I like Cam Smith and Devon Achane, I think you needed to go offensive line and edge with these 2 picks here. And you go with another receiver, okay, and then Ryan Hayes, which I think Ryan Hayes is fine. I'm going to give this a C for the Dolphins, though. Moving on, we've got the Minnesota Vikings. They went Jordan Addison, which I absolutely love that pick. I'm going to be honest, this could be an S draft for me. This is very close because you got Jordan Addison. Mekhi Blackman, I think, is a slot corner. Jay Ward, really good safety, which makes me wonder what they're going to do with Lewis Seen, who they drafted pretty high last year. Jacqueline Roy can play in the interior. I really love that pick. Jaron Hall, love that pick. And Dwayne McBride, really like that. The only pick I question is the Jay Ward pick. I thought they might have reached on Blackman. This gets an A for me. The Vikings didn't have very many picks. I think they did a really solid job addressing what they needed. The New England Patriots. Oh, man. Do I have stuff to say about the Patriots draft? Christian Gonzalez, Keon White, both A picks. I loved the value there. Then it just fell off a cliff. Marte Mapu, Jake Andrews. Okay. Mapu makes sense. You need some more linebacker help. Why Jake Andrews? David Andrews already on the team at center. And then you took City So, Antonio Mafi later. So you already took 2 more guards. What is your long-term plan with Andrews? Confused by that. You traded up for Chad Ryland. You took a punter in Bryce Behringer. Really like the Keishon Boutte pick. Demario Douglas, okay. I'm going to give this like a C-. I think they reached on a lot of players. I just didn't understand the draft strategy. And I'm going to give this like a C, maybe up there. Because I like 3 picks for them. I'm going to put it right up there with the Jags. It's like a D plus for me. I don't think there's any Fs in this draft. I'm moving on to the New Orleans Saints. This is a really solid draft for the Saints. You got Brian Brzee and Isaiah Foskey, 2 solid pieces for your defensive line. Kendre Miller was the pick I just didn't understand. I didn't think you needed to go with a 3rd running back, but I guess with the uncertainty around Alvin Kamara, it makes a little bit of sense. Nick Saldiveri, don't hate the pick. I think it's good value there. They traded up for him. Offensive line help, can play that guard spot for them, which I like. Jake Haener, absolutely love the pick. Could be a quarterback that can learn under Derek Carr. Jordan Howden, some good safety depth. And then A.T. Perry, one of my steals of the draft. You got him in the 6th round. The only pick I question is Kendre Miller, and I'm giving this an A. I think the Saints did a really solid job. Am I being too high on some of these teams? Because I got a lot of A's. I've got 3, 4. I got like 8 A's right now. Maybe I need to be a little bit harsher on these teams. You guys can let me know down in the comment section below. The Giants, they might have got an S here. Because you got Deonte Banks, John Michael Schmitz, Jalen Hyatt, and Eric Gray with your first 4 picks. You nailed all 4 of them. You needed a speedy receiver that can push the ball down the field. Deonte Banks does that. You needed a center. John Michael Schmitz is the most sure thing at the center position in this draft. You needed physicality at the cornerback position. You get Deonte Banks. You needed an RB2. You got Eric Gray. Trey Hawkins, the 3rd from Old Dominion. Jordan Riley. Gervarius Owens. I do like Owens actually as another safety on this roster. The Giants are going to get an S from me. I think they addressed everything they needed to, and they hit it out of the park here. Moving on to the New York Football Jets. I'm sorry, the mock draft guy. Will McDonald the 4th was way too high. I thought that was one of the reaches in this draft. Joe Tippmann and Carter Warren, Israel Abanikanda and Zach Kuntz, solid picks. Jair Barnes, Jerry Bernard Converse. I didn't love that. I thought they should have gone with a little bit more offensive line help. Maybe get a defensive tackle even. Maybe a go receiver even. I like Zach Kuntz a lot. I like Joe Tippmann a lot. I think this is a C for the Jets. Not in love with a lot of what they did. And the Philadelphia Eagles, we could probably just throw them in S tier and move on. Because you got Jalen Carter, Nolan Smith. That's an S on its own. Oh my gosh. This is an S tier. We don't even need to talk about it. They just got a lot of my favorite guys. I think Tanner McKee is not a very good player, but you got him in the 6th round as a backup quarterback. Why not? Kaylee Ringo, you can develop into something. Sidney Brown is awesome. Moro Ojomo in the 7th round, incredible value. Tyler Steen, Nolan Smith. This is an awesome draft for them. And I think we're going to go back-to-back S tiers here for the Steelers because You got Broderick Jones, Joey Porter Jr., S. Keanu Benton, still S. Darnell Washington, still S. They just crushed it. And down here in the 7th round, you get Corey Trice, a cornerback with long arms, really good size. I think that's insane value. You get an offside or an off-ball linebacker in Nick Herbig. I love that for them. And they just address more offensive line help in Spencer Anderson late. The Steelers dominated this draft for me, and they get an S. Then we've got the Seattle Seahawks, who they've been bringing in a lot of UDFA wide receivers. I gotta say, I think the draft started strong for them with Devon Witherspoon, Jackson Smith-Njigba, and Derek Hall. And then Zach Charbonnet was not in love with, but Anthony Bradford, Cameron Young, Mike Morris, Olusegun Oluwatimi, I liked that. And then your last 2 picks, Jarek Reed, Kenny McIntosh. I guess you're just going BPA at that point. The Zach Charbonnet pick's the only one I question, and I'm going to give this like an A for the Seattle Seahawks. Yeah, I think they really did a good job, and dare I say they're the new favorites in the NFC West, especially with the uncertainty to the San Francisco 49ers, who got Jair Brown, Jake Moody, Cameron Latu. Love that. I really like Darrell Luter as a prospect. I think he's got a lot of upside. They went 2 tight ends here. They took Ronnie Bell from Michigan, great value there. D. Winters, Jalen Graham. Okay, pretty solid draft from them. I'm going to give this a solid B. I think they got a lot of positions. They reached on Jake Moody. 2 tight ends I don't love, but I think Darrell Luter's got a lot of upside for you. So I'm going to give them a B here. And then we're going to move on to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I absolutely loved what this team did. They are going to get, this is a borderline S for me. Kalijah Kancey's perfect next to Vita Vea. I like Yaya Diaby as well. Servatia Dennis, solid piece there. Also, Cody Mock can be your interior offensive lineman, which you desperately needed help on. You got Payne Durham, Trey Palmer, who's a speedy receiver, who I think actually could be a replacement for Scotty Miller. You got Josh Hayes. Jose Ramirez could be one of the steals of this draft, though. I really like Jose Ramirez. Yeah, I'm giving Tampa an S, guys. I know. Maybe I'm a bit high on them, but I like what they did. Tennessee. All right, let's see here. They had a really good draft. Yeah, Peter Skoronski, great. He was my favorite offensive lineman in this class. Will Levis, you got him in the 2nd round. Why not take a swing? Tyjae Spears, I love the guy. Shout out Tyjae Spears, another guy I had the privilege to interview, and he fits really well next to Derrick Henry. I thought they had other pressing needs. They waited on receiver till the 7th round, which I didn't love. Josh Wiley, good value at the tight end. Jalen Duncan was a steal for me. Yeah, I'm going to give the Titans an A. They're like an A-. And then we got the Washington Commanders. I might be giving way too many A's out. I'm in a generous mood. They went with Emmanuel Forbes, Jartavius Martin, Ricky Stromberg, Braden Daniels. I love those first 4 picks. I thought they might have went too heavy on doubling down, but Stromberg, you don't know what's going to happen with Nick Gates long term. KJ Henry, a good piece, especially with the Montez Sweat and Chase Young stuff going on. Chris Rodriguez, one of the best running backs in college football last year. His usage rate was off the charts, though. And Andre Jones is a developmental piece. They needed some linebacker help. I'm going to give them a solid B. I thought they did a good job. So, what do we get out? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 A's, 10 B's, 4 C's, 2 D's, and I believe that's 6 S tiers. That's my grades for the 2023 NFL Draft. Stay tuned. I've got my biggest steals of the draft, my biggest reaches of the draft coming up later this evening. Hit that like button, subscribe if you are new, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Adios.